And I think I am live. I came on a little earlier than I originally planned because my son he's using the laptop to do an online class at 4 o'clock. So that's why I ended up changing the time. So thank you guys for jumping on and understanding. If you're just watching me for the first time, this is Gina, and today is Monday, which means that it's another episode of Making Mondays Matter. And today we're going to talk about, the topic for today is just breathe. That's part of the topic, is just breathe. And the other part is getting outdoors. All right. And I know you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, she's talking about going outside. In this day and age, with everything that's going on, she wants us to go outside. But the thing is, even without everything that's been going on, most of us tend to spend 93% of our time indoors. And that is a large number, right? So that would mean we spend about 7% of our time outdoors. And with everything that has happened over the last year and a half-ish, it's caused us to be indoors even more, right? So I am recommending things that you can do outside, taking into account all of the safety procedures, of course. And if you're not comfortable with that, I'm also going to share things with you on how you can, bring the outdoors in, okay? Because the idea is, what I'm going to be talking about today is to connect with nature. I think so many of us have disconnected from nature even before all of everything that's been going on. We have such a disconnect with nature, and it's kind of a really sad situation. So I want us to talk a little bit about how we can reconnect with nature and get outdoors a little bit more and really kind of connect with our breath, right? I know we talk a lot about breathing, and we breathe without thinking about it, but a lot of the times it's not really intentional breathing. And that might sound kind of strange, because we don't really think about breathing, right? It's something that we do automatically. We don't have to say, okay, now I have to breathe in, and okay, now I have to breathe out. We don't have to think about it. We just do it. But a lot of the times we don't really even we don't breathe properly. I think a lot of us tend to live in kind of a fight or flight place. So our breathing isn't as deep as it really should be, and we don't get that, deep, we don't get as much oxygen in as we really should, because we tend to breathe like in here rather than breathing from down here and really expanding our lungs and really filling our lungs with the air, right? We don't tend to do that. And I've paid attention to different people, and I've noticed that a lot of us tend to breathe really shallow, real shallow breaths. And so today what I'm going to encourage you to do is to get outside, and when you're outside, just to really learn how to breathe deeply. But it's not just about breathing, right? It's just getting back into nature, really connecting or reconnecting with nature. And I am one of those, if I should say this, I'm a nature freak. I'm a nature girl. My sign is Taurus, and it's an earth sign, yes. But I think from time, even before I knew what all of these things meant, from time I was a little girl, I was always outside, playing, and I played in the rain. Right now, we don't really do much of that. As a little girl, I played in the rain. Whenever it rained, I would make these little paper boats, and collect a couple of my friends, and we'd put them into the water by the road, and we just watch them kind of float down, right? On a windy day, we'd make paper kites, and we'd go running, and we'd go walking through the woods and picking mangoes and all fun stuff, right? So I think from time I was a little girl, I was always into nature and into growing things, because my grandmother taught me a lot about growing. I remember having to pick corn whenever it was mature, and picking tomatoes and growing cucumbers. I mean, that was my childhood, and I loved it. So I think it was always in me, and to this day, I am still like that, right? So this one of the but nature is just so healing, and I don't think people realize it just by spending a few minutes outdoors, how it just it heals you. You don't necessarily feel it as it's going on, but how can you know, I'm trying, I'm very passionate about stuff like this. So that's why I teach it, because I think it's something that we're so disconnected from nature, and I'm part of what I teach is to reconnect to nature and reconnect to that simple thing that can cause us to heal our bodies, right? There's a plant out there for pretty much every illness that exists, and I think that's also one of the reasons why I love for people to get out there and just explore nature and really reconnect. So if you're familiar with Japan, I mean, who doesn't know about Japan, right? But the Japanese people are so, they have a thing about nature. And they even have a term that they refer to as forest bathing, where they literally go and they walk among nature. And I don't remember the actual Japanese term, but it literally translates into forest and bath. So forest bathing. One part of the word means bath, and the other part literally means woods or forest, right? So it's forest bathing. The Japanese are highly into that. We also have this thing we do called earthing. If you ever walked out bare feet on the grass or bare feet on the beach, that's what you're doing. You're earthing. It's just reconnecting to the magnetic field of the earth, and you're reconnecting it to your body. So earthing, and a lot of us do it without even realizing that's what we're doing. But you want to do it without shoes on. You don't want to have any kind of shoes on when you do this, and it's very simple to do earthing. You simply walk out onto your lawn, bare feet, about 20 to 30 minutes. That's what I would recommend. Longer if you can, but at least 20 to 30 minutes every day to reconnect your magnetic field with that of the Earth's. And there are enough videos on YouTube to show you what happens just to your blood alone when you are doing this thing called earthing. It really does help with us with so many different things, right? Another simple way of getting back into nature is simply by the foods we eat. Eat raw foods, eat foods that, are as close to the original as possible. For example, a mango that you pick right off the tree. If you can literally go to a mango tree and just pick it right off and eat it, that's great. A lot of us don't have access to mango trees, so we go and get it from the supermarket. That's just as good. By as close to the natural as possible, what I mean is you don't want to eat a cooked mango. Okay, that's different. But you want to try to eat as raw as you possibly can whenever you are eating meals. That's another way of getting as close to nature as possible. But if you can go to somewhere where there are fresh fruits and vegetables and you can just pick right off the tree, or right off of the bush, whatever, then that's amazing. That's really good. All right. So a lot of the suggestions I'm going to talk about as well are for those people who cannot get outside for one reason or another. Maybe you're in a wheelchair, maybe you're bedridden. I'm also going to talk about ways of bringing nature indoors so that you can reconnect with nature in that form. Okay. So I'm not forgetting that there are people who are not able to get outside. So I am going to give some suggestions for that. So what I want you to do, getting it back into nature is a way of, it allows you to kind of get quiet, and it allows you to be able to reflect. And, the way that your mind just kind of calms down, your whole body kind of calms down whenever you're walking amongst, some some trees, or you're at the beach and you just listen to the waves splashing and you're enjoying the breeze, you can't help but notice how different your body feels whenever you are out in that kind of an environment, rather than when you're sitting at home and maybe you're trying to work on that final project and you can feel the stress kind of building up in your body. Nature just is so healing. And that's why I'm encouraging you to get out there. So while you're out there, I want you to listen. I made a bunch of notes as I was, thinking about what I wanted to talk about today. I made a few notes. I'm going to be referring to those periodically. So I want you to listen to nature, and I want you to try to use all of your senses while you're out there. And in a little bit, I'm going to talk about what I mean by that, because there's a little game that I play, and it's so easy for everyone to do this. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a little while. While you're there, I want you to listen to the birds. I want you to smell the grass, smell the trees. What kind of trees are around? Are there pine trees? Are there fruit trees? But try to smell, smell the all of the different smells. Take notice of all of the different smells that are around. The fruits, the flowers. Get curious. Don't just take a walk and there's a tree, and yes, there's some water, and yes, there's whatever that is over there. Really get curious and start to look at all of the details, right? Get close to nature. Notice the little ants that are crawling up in the cracks on the trees. Notice the mushrooms that are buried under, maybe there's a pile of leaves on the ground and there's some mushrooms kind of hiding in there. Notice the squirrels, how they're playing, running up and down on the trees. Just notice all of the little details as you're walking through wherever you're walking, whether it's in a park, whether you're walking on the beach. If you're on the beach, notice the different shells, all of the different types of shells. Notice the seaweed might have washed up on the shore. Notice the smell of the air. Maybe you can feel the sand as the wind is blowing. Maybe you can feel the salt as it dries on your skin. But really take notice of all of those little details as you are getting back out into nature. Take some time to reflect as well while you're out there. Don't just walk, but take some time to reflect on how your body is feeling when you're out in this kind of an environment. And while you're out there, if you notice that Mother Nature needs a little bit of help in the cleanup area, then by all means do that. If you see a plastic bottle or a piece of paper lying there, find the nearest trash can. Do it safely. If you're carrying some gloves, pick up whatever it is on the ground and throw it into the nearest trash can. Leave nature as clean as you possibly can as you wander throughout. Okay, but definitely notice all of the fine details. So if you're not able to get out into nature and to really become one with nature, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can bring nature indoors. But if you can't go to a park, or if you can't go to like there's some forest that you can't really go walking through, one of the next best things, find like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or maybe an Ace Hardware, because I know they also have a garden section, and just spend some time walking through the garden section. I've gone to Lowe's and Home Depot and did just that, not necessarily thinking about buying anything, but just to smell the roses. We all have that saying, take some time to smell the roses. But this, a Lowe's or a Home Depot garden center, or even at a Walmart, because I know some Walmarts have that garden center, just take some time and just take a stroll through the garden section and just admire all of the different types of flowers that are there. Smell some of the flowers, just enjoy that time. If you're not able to get out into a forest or a park area, that is like the next best thing. Okay, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart garden center, great options for that. But again, if you are able to go to a park, by all means go to a park. Or there's a Japanese garden that I've been to down in, I think it's West Palm Beach or close to West Palm Beach, called Murakami Gardens. It is breathtaking. If you have the chance to go to a Japanese garden, do that. If you have a chance to go to like an herbal, there's a, I don't know the exact name of this area. There's a school located there. There's a large, um, not necessarily a park, but they grow all kinds of fruits and vegetables, and they have different gardens, and you can go there and you can walk around, you can take classes, you can make things. It's just if you can find an area like that, you can also try that. There are some what we call I guess extensions, where corporate extensions, I think is what it's referred to. Like some universities will have what's called corporate extensions, where you go and you learn about different plants that are native to your area. If you're looking to create a garden with just local plants. So there's a lot of different options, a lot of different ways that you can connect with nature, right? There's this one place over in Rockledge, which is just like 3 hours away from where I am. And it's just amazing just to go and walk through. And they have this one area. It's I call it a butterfly house, where you walk in and they're nothing but flowers that butterflies love. And if you go during the spring and the summer, it's filled with butterflies. So you can just walk in and you can just enjoy all of the butterflies flying around. So there's so many different ways of getting back into nature. Now, if you're not able to to go out and do these things, there are ways of bringing nature to you, right? You can certainly plant a few things and have them, you can plant some food in a pot. If you decide you could grow maybe some tomatoes in a pot, you could have that as an option. You can certainly decorate with a lot of natural things, and by that I mean things like wicker, things like wood, have wood furniture. If you go to the beach, or maybe you have someone who goes to the beach, or a lot of these are available for sale now, where you can buy different items or decorative items that are made from shells or driftwood. You can even buy, gosh, there's so many different ways that you can acquire things that are from beach, that are related to the beach, so that you can have those inside of your home. You can also I like to do something called nature journaling. If I go out, I like to collect things like leaves. I would put them inside of a book and just get like a pencil and just rub over it on the bottom side of the leaf that has all the ribbing. So you rub over that and you get the imprint of the leaf. Another thing I love to do is I collect flowers, and then I would do press flowers within a book, and you allow them to dry. And after a couple of weeks, you have all of these dried flowers that are pressed. But what happens also is you get the imprints. Sometimes you get a lot of the ink from the flower itself that remains on the page that you've pressed it on. Another thing I like to do is to have my sketchbook and colored pencils, and I'll just sit there and maybe sketch. And this is if I'm outside, right? So I will just sit there and I will just sketch whatever it is that I'm looking at. And another thing I like to do is collect a lot of the flowers that I find, and I would bring back and make it into like a salt bath. So you add some of those flowers or some of those leaves, and be careful. I have to give a caveat here. Make sure you know what you're collecting. Make sure you're not collecting anything like poison ivy that you're going to put inside of your bath salt and then take a bath with it. So know what you're looking at. Do a little bit of research before you actually collect these things, okay? If you're not able to get outside, another thing you can do is scroll through nature pages online. If you're going to be on the computer or be online anyway, just go ahead and scroll through different pages that have to do with natural things, nature scenes. You can also look on YouTube. Has a lot of videos where you can look at videos of nature. You can listen to different soundscapes. There's lots of different programming that have to do with nature scenes, right? You can do nature studies, and there's several different ways you can take classes. You can simply do like an online course, learn a little bit, and then go out into nature and actually take a look or try to find whatever it is that you're studying in this online course. You can do bird watching or wildlife watching. A lot of the times you can do this from sitting inside your window. If I open up my window right now, I have the blinds closed because there's a glare, but there's a lake outside. There's white water lilies. There's tall reeds that are there. There's a family of sandhill cranes that come to visit often. There's lots of different birds. There's a great blue heron that sits out there. There's white ibises that periodically are walking along the lawn. So I don't necessarily have to go outside to enjoy this. I can just simply sit at my window. But a lot of the times I would take a chair and I'd just go and sit outside, and I would take some bread, and the sandhill cranes would just come and eat directly from my hand. Be careful with that if you choose to do that, because some of them can get a little aggressive. But a lot of the times I'll just go and sit outside, and I'll just watch the water, watch the wind play along the top of the lake, and listen to the way that the reeds kind of move and the rustling sound that they make, and just watch the birds just kind of enjoy themselves, right? You can join orchid groups. If you're into orchids or flowers, there's a lot of different groups where, for these type of lovers, right? One of the things that I've done over the past few years is design my dream garden or dream gardens. And if you don't necessarily have to build it, but if you have this vision, you can just sit there and you can just design a dream garden. And maybe you do want to build it and just gradually purchase the flowers that you want in your dream garden, right? You can bring nature in that way. You can design an outdoor corner or an indoor corner where you have maybe a little comfy chair, some pillows, a few plants, and make sure it's in an area where it gets a lot of sunshine, because you want to kind of simulate the outdoors as much as possible, right? So if you can do that indoors, you can also do it outdoors. You can have a nice sunny spot outside, have a comfy chair, a couple of pillows, and find some of your favorite plants in pots, and just create that little environment for you outside if you so desire. Let me just going through the notes and seeing what I have here. I mentioned that game, right? So let's talk about that for a minute. As I usually do in all of the live streams for the Making Mondays Matter, I always give you an activity, and there's a low tier, a medium tier, and a high tier, right? So I always give you an activity that I would like for you to do based on what I'm talking about for that day. So for this particular activity, the low tier, I want you to put aside 5 minutes. 5 minutes out of your day. Try to do that every day for at least 7 days or more, but definitely for at least 7 days. And I want you to just take that 5 minutes and go outside. Leave your phone inside, leave your iPad, leave your laptop, just go outside. No electronics are to follow you, okay? And just take that 5 minutes to just be in nature. And I want you to play this little game. This is something that I do when I need to just bring myself back to the moment. If I find myself like wondering and worrying about, what's going to happen tomorrow or 5 months from now or however long from now, I play this little game, and it's the 5 senses game. So what you do is, as you're sitting outside, your first sense, sight. What are you seeing? So for me, it would be, when I see the water and I see how the air or the wind is kind of blowing along the top, and I see the reeds kind of dancing in the wind. I see a bunch of birds over here, and I can describe the birds. I see, that particular bird is playing. I see that family of sandhill cranes over there. I see, the sky looks nice and clear right now. But try to to write. If you take your, this is one thing I would recommend, is taking your journal with you and a pen. So write down everything that you're seeing, or just speak it out loud if you don't want to write. So once you're finished with everything that you're seeing, then go to, is there anything I'm smelling, right? So maybe somebody is barbecuing across the lake, and the scent from whatever it is that they're barbecuing is coming over to you. So you can say, well, I smell that, barbecue chicken that my neighbor currently has on the grill, or I smell this cup of coffee that I have sitting in front of me, or I smell the exhaust from the car that just drove down the street and their muffler isn't working, whatever. Start saying all of these out, right? Okay, so go through the smell. What am I hearing? Okay, I just heard my neighbor crank up their car because they're getting ready to leave. I just heard the birds kind of squawking, maybe hear the birds flapping their wings. Maybe I'm hearing an airplane as it passes overhead. Whatever, just go through all of the different senses. So it's here. What can I touch? Maybe you're sitting on the grass. Run your fingers through the grass. How does that feel? Maybe maybe it's just been cut, and maybe you smell fresh cut grass. Maybe you're feeling the rough edges of the fresh cut grass, or maybe there's a dandelion, one of the dried heads of the dandelion that's there, and you're feeling how soft that is. Or maybe you're wearing just a really soft fabric. So how is that? How does that feel? So there's your touch. And taste. What can I taste? Maybe it's the taste of the kombucha that I'm drinking. Maybe it's the taste of the coffee that you may have in front of you, or the tea, or whatever beverage that you might have. Maybe you just brush your teeth and like, I can taste the minty freshness from the toothpaste that I just used. Okay, so whatever it is that you can taste, but go through all of the 5 senses, and that allows you to come back to present. If you find yourself like wondering or worrying about something that in the future, or something that happened yesterday and you're stressed out about it, play this little 5 senses game, and that helps to bring you back to present, and it helps to ground you. All right, so that is the low tier activity. You're probably thinking, that's low tier, that's a lot. But I do this every time I tend to feel stressed. Just play the 5 senses game. And you can journal all of these. You can write them down as they're coming up for you. But otherwise, you can just speak them out. Just speak it out. All right. So on the medium tier, the medium level activity, I want you to think of something that you do consistently every day, and you normally do it indoors. And I want you to think about how you can take that activity and translate it to outdoors. For example, if there's a game that you like to play on the inside, let's think, for example, checkers or chess. Maybe try to create a lawn size, or an outdoor size checkerboard, or chess. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. And there's a lot of examples online that you can look at. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Just think of ways that you can take that game outside. If you normally would eat inside around the table with everyone else, think about maybe taking one meal and going to the park and having a picnic in the park. Doing it safely, of course. So what about if you would normally exercise indoors? Maybe you have an exercise bike, right? Or maybe you have a treadmill. Rather than running on your treadmill, maybe go to a park and jog through the park, right? So think of an activity you would normally do inside all the time, and come up with a way that you could translate it to outdoors. So that is the medium tier level activity. Now the upper level, the high tier, think about starting a group. Maybe it's a group that you would consistently go walking with 3 or more times a week. or whatever other kind of exercise that you would want to do. Maybe it's you'd want a group that you would go on nature walks with, and you would meet, uh, based on your schedule, I'm sure. But if you have a group of friends who have similar interests in taking nature walks, then meet maybe once or twice a week, and you all can go on a nature walk and maybe start, collecting flowers for drying, or doing flower pressing, or leaf collecting leaves and then doing the rubbing. But think of something that you would like, and that other people, some maybe your close friends, would also like to do, and form that group and do that activity at least 3 times a week. Maybe you have a couple of friends who love beach volleyball. Go to the beach. I know a lot of beaches here, they do have volleyball nets already set up. So I think a lot of the times you just take your own volleyball and just play. Maybe you just grab a soccer ball and go and have a soccer game in the park. There's also basketball nets that are set up in the park. If you're a hiker, I live in Florida, so I don't really. I'm sure there are places where we can go hiking, but this is definitely not the place. Now, my daughter is always talking about, hiking where she is. And so if you do have hiking trails where you are, think about forming a group, and maybe 3 times a week, you all can go hiking and pick a different trail each time you go. So maybe 2 or 3 times might be a lot, but the idea is to get you outdoors, to get you back connecting with nature, right? So those are your 3 tiered activities. I'm sure that you could probably put in a lot of examples, and if you do have different ideas, feel free to pop them in the chat. I just did a lot of notes just as I was coming up with different ideas. Now, here is something I forgot to mention. One of the things I love to do is, while you're out, especially if you're walking through a wooded area, is to create art with the natural pieces that you find. There's an artist that I studied and I taught to my students years back. His name was Andy, or the name is Andy Goldsworthy. I'm not sure if he's still alive, to be honest. I'm sure he is. But Andy Goldsworthy, and his nature art is just amazing. And he's created artwork in the middle of winter using snow and ice. He's created artwork in the fall using all of the different colored leaves as they would fall. And you pick a season, he's done this artwork. So do some research on Andy Goldsworthy. So while you're out, you can create a little bit of artwork. Now, the idea is not to destroy as you're creating the art. It's to use maybe fallen leaves, fallen branches, dried flowers to create the artwork, and just to leave it there. If you want to take it with you, I don't see that as a problem, but the idea is not to destroy or to break something, and to create. It's to use what you find, like the dried leaves on the ground, the dried branches that are there. There is a term, and it just slipped me, where people stack rocks. I've seen that a lot. So maybe you can do that as well if it's allowed. I know that it isn't allowed in certain areas, because they do believe that I think, especially if it's in a river, by rearranging the rocks, it can cause issues with flow and a lot of different things. I am not too familiar with that, so I can't go into any detail. But so if it's allowed in your region, then you can try stacking rocks to create your art. But there's so many different ways that you can reconnect with nature. What I've given you is just a short list. Okay, so get back into nature. I know when I need to get back outside, I feel it in my body. It's just like art. If I don't get to create, eventually it's going to manifest in stress, in the way I relate to other people, I get snippy maybe, but uh, and being in nature is the same thing for me. If I don't, if I'm not able to get outside and just reconnect and take a walk and just breathe that fresh air, I feel it, and I'm not a happy camper when I don't get that. And it doesn't, you don't have to be a nature girl. You don't have to be um, an earth sign or whatever the case is. Everybody needs this. Nature is healing, right? And if you're a Bible reader, we know that in the Bible it says that the plants and the trees are for the healing of the nation. We are supposed to not just to drink the teas that are made from this, but we're meant to be out and about in nature. And I understand that this is a challenging time with all of the stuff that we've got going on right now, but take the time to get out into nature, do it safely. I do encourage that, do it safely. And if you can find a safe group where everybody's taking the necessary precautions, but do reconnect with nature, and you will find that your body will thank you in so many different ways, and you'll feel the difference, and you want to do it so much more on a regular basis. And I do hope you do. I do hope, and I would love to hear from you if you do these different activities either today or from any other previous Making Mondays Matter episode. I would love to hear from you to see, how are things going, and how did you feel after doing that particular activity. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here because, yes, in about 8 minutes, my son has an online class. I want to make sure that he gets enough time to get on and get started. But thank you all so much for sharing this time with me. Um, this wasn't a very long episode, but it's just to kind of get you thinking about ways that you can reconnect with nature. And one thing I did forget to mention, I kind of hinted at it, but bring plants inside. It's one of the things I've got fresh flowers sitting in front of me here. I've got fresh flowers on the dining room table. I have fresh flowers out in the living room. Bring nature inside. You don't necessarily have to go outside, but yes, I am encouraging you to go out, but at the same time, bring nature indoors as well and enjoy nature inside. Not only does bringing these plants create oxygen, but it kind of dresses up the place. It breaks up all of the concrete and all of the other stuff that we've got going on, right? But the plants do provide that oxygen for us. It cleans the air, and it has so many benefits that I really can't get into right now. But nature is healing. That's the bottom line. And when you're out, don't forget to breathe. Breathe deeply. Okay? We do so much shallow breathing, we forget that, take the time and just breathe and reflect and reconnect with nature. And I will see you all again next Monday for another episode of Making Mondays Matter. And I am working on a few other things at the moment, and I will let you all know about those real soon. All right. But thank you so much for joining me for this short stream. And if you have any thoughts, any questions, any comments, you know where to reach me. All of my Facebook pages, my Instagram. A lot of you are friends with me on Facebook. I can be found. All right. So some of you also watch from YouTube. You can also send me an email from YouTube or wherever you connect with me. But thank you so much for joining me on this live stream. And I look forward to spending more time with you next week. I do appreciate the time that you take to come and join me here. So just want to let you know that I do appreciate your time that you do spend with me. But be safe out there, and I will see you all again real soon.